Hey guys and gals, welcome back to another Vinny Vid Productions video. In this video I'm going to go over the basics of DCC. I have had a lot of comments where guys are afraid of it or scared of it or intimidated by it. So I decided to put a short video together on the very basics of DCC. I hope you enjoy the video. So without further ado, let's get on to it. Alright guys, let's go ahead and get into the basics of DCC. Everybody, I read a lot of comments that people are scared of it because they seem it might be complicated or whatever the case may be. Anyhow, I will give you a quick understanding of how it works. Right here we have what you guys are using for your power, which could be a dial on here that you twist up or whatever. But what you're actually doing with this unit is actually sending voltage out to your, I'm going to call it a power distribution line for DC. So you're actually just sending power out, whether it be 2 volts, 10 volts, 12 volts, whatever you're telling it to do. And from here it would go out to your track and it would make your locomotive go. Now, here is the difference. Here is your DCC system, okay? Now you can use these same wires to hook up into here. I just did this for clarification, but right now we're going to X this out totally, all the way down to the wires. This becomes a bus line, and the reason why it's a bus line is because if you think about it, it's actually a communication line. You're not sending 12 volt DC power out here, you're sending out an AC signal. You're telling the locomotive that this is what you want it to do. Anyhow, to do that, of course, you're going to have the same wires that you had here hooked up. Now, in case you guys are wondering what these black dots are, those are connections to the power source or the bus line. The blue on here is because I have changed the color of my track feeders to blue. So what I did was I marked my yellow bus line with the blue tape so I know which one is which. So now you have the DCC system hooked up to your track. You're going to have another, sorry about that guys, you're going to have another component, and that's going to be your handheld controller. Now this controller is going to have an LCD readout on the top here and a bunch of buttons, and these buttons are all different commands that you give to the DCC command center, and then depending on what locomotive you want it to go to, it'll go out to the track, it'll find that locomotive and give it the command that you're telling it to do. On my controller right here, I think I have 12 buttons plus some other stuff on the side. So you know, you got function 1 if you have sound in your locomotives. Function 1 would be bell. Function 2 would be horn, and then short horn and lights and this, that, and the other thing. But you can control all of that via your handheld controller. You also have the up and down as far as your speed goes also in your handheld. There's a bunch of other stuff that you can hook up in here, such as auto reverse units, block detectors, circuit breakers, and so on and so forth. But for this right now, I'm just getting into the very basics of it, and I'll show you some little tricks that I learned. Because I changed the color of my wire, and like I said, I marked it blue, for me to keep track of where it goes, I learned this little tip from John Tanzillo. He takes one of his box cars and he puts tape on it. So the blue tape will correspond with my blue wire. So as long as I have the car on the track with the blue wire and the blue tape on the same rail, I can't make a mistake. Second, I just used this real thin striping, pin striping. It's blue. I know you can't see the color. It's a really dark blue. And finally, to get these connections, stop it now, will you? To get these connections here on the track, a lot of you guys go ahead and solder the wire on, and that's good. It makes a really good connection, electrical connection. But the only drawback about that is if you ever have to pull the wires off or whatever, you're going to have to break out your soldering iron, heat it up, and hope that you don't destroy any of the rails or maybe points if you're close to a turnout. So what I did was, and you can buy these, but I actually made them. These are rail joiners, and all I did was solder wire to the bottom of them, and any place I have that I want to put a feeder wire in, I just put one of these connections right here, and I'm ready to go. Anyhow, I'll take you over to my layout, and I'll show you exactly what this bus line is and how I'm going to connect my wires and so on and so forth. Alright guys, what you're looking at here is my bus line, and I'm using 18 or 16 gauge. I don't remember exactly which one it was. And I do have some temporary wiring hooked up over here. As you can see, I got my blue wire on the inside rail and my white wire on the outside rail. And so we'll come down to here, and temporarily I have this one hooked up, and it is on my green wire, which goes to my white wire. I know that sounds confusing, but if you do what I say, as far as having your polarity car, as John Tanzillo calls it, you can't make a mistake. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. Hold on a second. See, and here's my polarity car. You notice that the blue stripe follows the rail that has the blue wire on it. So with this process, you really can't make a mistake. Anyhow, this joint, this white wire, once I drill the holes up here in the oh, come back here, you. Once I drill the holes in the sub-road bed, this wire will come through the sub-road bed, and I eventually will solder it to this joint that I have down here. Other than that, it's easy. The bus wire, I don't know if you can be able to see it, but it runs all the way down, and I'm ready to connect up some more down at that end. Anyhow, that's just a quick overview of how the wiring is going to look. Alright guys, what you're looking at here is my DCC Hand Controller. This is a dual throttle. As you can see, I got one knob here and one knob here. It looks very intimidating with having all of these buttons and doohickeys on there, but it's really not that hard. First thing you need to do, I'm not familiar with NCE, so I don't know if the system is exactly the same, but for my system, for me to get track power, I need to hit the power button, and then it's going to ask me if I want it on or off, and it's either yes or no, so I would hit the yes button, sorry about that. And now I have track power. To get a locomotive, what you need to do on this side throttle is to hit loco, and as you can see, I already have 6951 entered in there. So if I want to keep that number, all I do is hit loco again, and now that address is in there, and if I turn this throttle up, the locomotive should start to go. If I want to add a second locomotive to MU it, what I would do is go to this side, and I would press loco again, but press this button down, and well, let's see, you should get this. So now if I want another locomotive in there, I would enter, let's say, 6798. Now 6798 is there, so all I need to do now is hit loco again, and it's permanently there. Now if I want to MU this, all I need to do is hit the MU button, like that, and it's going to say plus or minus, add or remove. So if I want to MU it, I just hit the yes button, and now these two locomotives will be controlled by this half of the throttle. this still leaves this side open for me to run another locomotive. Anyhow, all these buttons are just commands that you can give to your command station. For instance, here is the forward and reverse. When you hit this one, since these are both MU together, they both will respond to the forward or reverse. Same thing goes if you have a third locomotive, you can do the same thing here with forward or backwards. These buttons down here represent different functions that you can use if your decoder is equipped with, such as number 1 would be the bell, number 2 would be the short horn, number 3 would be the long horn, the 0 would be for lights, and so on and so forth, depending on what your decoder is capable of doing. Anyhow, I tried to make this as simple as possible. It's not really that hard. You should not be intimidated by DCC. It's basically just it's a computer, basically. Digitrax also makes what they call a utility throttle. It's a pretty nice little throttle. Here's your speed control here. Up here on the top is your forward, your back, and in the center is a stop. It's got a few functions on here that you can use. What I don't like about this throttle is that to enter a locomotive, you got to twist each one of these to the number that you want, and then the locomotive is programmed. But anyhow, I hope you guys and gals enjoyed this little tutorial on how to use DCC and what it's all about. For now, your questions, comments, input, subs, shares, and likes are always welcome. Please check out my PayPal account that I have there and help support my channel. For now, that's all folks. BNSF 6951 out.